welcome everybody to Going Over Our Freds, the internet's only podcast ever. As always, I am Kennedy, and sitting across from me in beautiful Chicago is...
Meredith.
We watched a whole new genre that we have yet to cover here in Going Over Our Freds. I believe Fred Olin Ray himself calls this genre women's thriller.
Yeah, it's called Deadly Shores from 2018. And I think it was made for TV, but I don't know if it was made for Lifetime or something else. Do you happen to know?
I am pretty sure this is a made-for-Lifetime movie. It has that, let's just call it a stink of it, but I am not, super against the Lifetime movie. In fact, Joe Bob Briggs has gone so far to say as basically the Lifetime movie is the current drive-in. Oh. We went from, the drive-ins to, direct-to VHS movies in the 80s, and now the Lifetime movies are really that, cheap... you never know what's going to happen, low bar for entry, whole series of movies that we get now. But yeah, no, this movie definitely premiered on Lifetime, and I feel like Lifetime movies are kind of the opposite of Film Bro movies. So there is so little information about this from the typical websites that I would normally research that, I had to kind of do some actual research and
break out those old school skills.
It's literally, I was on Fred Olin Ray's Facebook page, both his fan page and the regular one, and I was matching up photographs to see these locations and stuff like that. So,
wow,
yeah,
cool.
It's a whole thing. We're in a whole thing now.
We open the movie following a blind woman. She is outdoors, kind of in a New England-y setting, wearing a flowing white cotton nightgown, and she's got a cane, right? So,
a walking stick.
A walking stick. Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know. Whatever Daredevil has. The blind person cane, yeah.
Yeah. And so she's outside, middle of the night, alone, walking around. She's tapping to find her way. And there's a ghostly voice calling her name. Her name's Grace. He's like, Grace, Grace. Okay. So she's like, I'm coming. She enters a home. It's a home attached to a lighthouse. She ascends the spiral staircase to the lighthouse, gets to the view deck. I should have looked up exactly what that's called, but it's the outlook where you go up.
It's the deck of the lighthouse.
The observation deck. And a man pushes her off, and she falls to her death.
We don't see the man, though, because it's a mystery movie, right?
We see him, yeah.
Yeah, we just see him.
In my memory, I wasn't paying that close of attention. I was like, yeah, there's no way the movie's going to tell us who the killer is at this moment. So I just kind of glanced up. I'm taking my notes. I thought later when I was watching the movie at the beginning scene, he must have been wearing some sort of mask. But now thinking back on it, it was probably just the guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we know straight off the bat who's the killer is.
Yeah. And okay, now this is a Fred Olin Ray movie. Mm-hmm. So where do you think this lighthouse is?
Well, it's a real lighthouse. So, but it's okay. The Great Lakes also have lighthouses, so it's probably in New York.
It is. Now, I was thinking, Lake Erie doesn't have a ton of lighthouses, but then I looked up. I did my research, and he has a picture of himself next to this lighthouse, and it's in Lake Ontario.
Oh, cool.
And then I searched through Lake Ontario lighthouses, which there's about less than 15, I would think. And this is what is it called? Hold on, I have it on my phone because I kept the window open. It's like the 30 Mile Point Lighthouse. It's called, 30 Mile Point Lighthouse, right on Lake Ontario. Exactly 30 miles east of where the Niagara River joins Lake Ontario. So it's right in that same Western New York region that we generally, Fred Olin Ray movies tend to be, within 100 miles of Buffalo. So that is where we are once again. And that is why we see a couple familiar faces in this movie.
Yeah. It's a nice place. I would visit. And that explains a lot of things. I wasn't thinking too much when I first watched it. I was just like, oh, Lighthouse, New England. But none of the rest of it gave off a New England feel. So
No,
New York, there it is.
I will say at this point, too, I am impressed with the production value that they had cloudy eye contact lenses for the actor playing the blind woman, plays Grace.
Yes, Grace.
So that is investment into this movie. So it's pretty good.
I mean, truly, when the actress could have just kept her eyes closed or they could have put sunglasses on, that is a real, like, that's production value right there.
Yeah.
Another thing my optometrist told me recently is that sunlight is what over time causes cataracts. So a key part of your eye health is wearing sunglasses. The more you know.
But I don't wear sunglasses.
Well, start.
Oh, man, okay.
But also, cataracts can be removed by surgery, and then you won't need glasses again. That's what my uncle did, and he can just see very sharply. It's almost like a factory reset, but when you're in your 70s.
So this is just like my strategy of not flossing and just getting deep cleaning every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's my husband's strategy, too.
It's a bad strategy. It's bad.
It's a strategy. Anyway, 1 year later in the movie,
One year later.
I'll get the SpongeBob like 1 year later situation.
1 year later.
Wealthy blonde woman Anna and a man called Dr. Shaw arrive at a ferry. So we learn here a bunch of stuff. Dr. Shaw is very concerned about Anna. Anna's very suspicious of Dr. Shaw's concern. She just got married, and it was like a rush job, and Dr. Shaw, who was Anna's late father's friend, he's like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be rushing into this marriage. You don't know this guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to look out for you. And then Anna's like, yeah, I'm sure you were my dad's friend. I'm sure you just wanted his money, like, blah, blah, blah. She just thinks that he's hanging around for money. Or that's what we're given to understand. So she basically gives him 2 middle fingers and pieces out to a ferry and makes friends with the ferry captain who, given their conversation, I thought the ferry captain was going to be a much bigger part of this movie, but his name is Captain Handsome.
Is his name Captain Handsome?
I think it's Handsome without the D, Hansome.
Oh, okay.
I didn't look it up, but I think
he's credited as Ed in the credits, so we don't even get a last name there. But that's an actor named Scott Thomas Reynolds, who we've seen at least a time before. He was in the Sniper Special Ops. He was in the Steven Seagal movie we watched. Yeah, he's just nice boat captain guy.
Yep.
And they're driving. That's an actual ferry. It's the Bemis Point ferry.
Okay.
And that is not on Lake Ontario. That is over Lake Champlain.
I love ferries.
And I don't know. I never got the sense. Like they said, they kept on referring to Anna as being from the mainland and stuff like that. So I guess that what we're going to is an island, but we don't like an island of the name or a sense of how big the island is or...
Not really, no. It was aggravating. Apparently, it's big enough where people would bring their oversized SUVs for daily use.
Yeah, I couldn't get a sense of the town at all because, and it's one of these situations where we know there's at least 30 people in the town because the rummage sale at the end has a lot of people. So this is a little early for all this, but I also don't get a sense of how isolated this lighthouse is because, people have no trouble getting there. It's not
everybody knows that it's there.
Yeah, everybody knows who lives there and all of his business.
It's a small town, small-ish town.
Yeah.
So everyone is surprised to meet Anna when she gets to the island. She's introducing herself as Mrs. Richard Palmer. She heads to a bar, the local bar and grill called the Sailcroft.
Okay, so I want to say, so she introduces herself as Mr. Dick Palmer. And they didn't keep up.
No, she doesn't.
Richard Palmer. And I thought they were going to keep up with this because for the first hour of this movie, it is just the no-budget ripoff of Rebecca. Have you ever seen Rebecca?
No.
So Rebecca is, it's based on a novel, but it's most famously a 1940 movie by Alfred Hitchcock starring Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine.
Oh.
The main character doesn't have a first name. She just goes by the second Mrs. De Winter, or the current Mrs. De Winter.
Then who's Rebecca?
Rebecca is Laurence Olivier's dead wife. is married to Laurence Olivier. They live in this big kind of secluded mansion on the sea. And you know who another important character is in that movie?
Mm-mm.
The housekeeper who has the most obvious lesbian crush on Rebecca and hates the new wife and loves Rebecca more than anything. That is exactly the setup here.
Oh my God, spoilers.
Yeah. I mean, but anyway, so Anna goes to this bar where we're greeted by our best friend in the whole wide world, Katie Schneider.
What? The bartender?
Yeah, the bartender.
What?
Yeah. Literally, we see her every week at this point.
I did not recognize her.
You did not recognize her or her accent, huh? No.
No.
She was not doing a New England accent, I will tell you that much.
She was just talking like a normal person.
Yeah, a normal person with a Great Lakes accent that is thicker than pancake batter.
Oh my God. Okay, her character name is Carrie. She's the bartender. She's like Anna's new BFF.
I think she's like the 5th billed actor in this movie, so good for her. And she might give the best performance in the movie.
I think that's debatable. I never really understood what her specific motivations were. She seemed like a person that loved stirring the pot. Maybe that was her motivation. She just likes to stir up things.
Yeah, there's a whole scene later we'll talk about where I don't know what she's doing.
Well, anyway, that's how they know each other.
Yeah. Anna, by the way, doesn't have any friends, and her parents are dead, and we don't know of any bit of her life outside of this thing, other than she's got money.
Yep.
But even though she's got money and she's moving to, the successful writer's house, nothing really appears like they have a lot of money.
No. Well, I mean, by today's standards, sure.
Yeah. I haven't mentioned Anna yet. Anna is an actor named Carly Schroeder. She's born in 1990, so she's a baby. I love when actors don't put why we know them in their IMDb known for. They kind of bury it.
Yeah.
And her thing that she's done that's seen by the most people is she was a regular on Lizzie McGuire.
Okay.
So she was the girlfriend of Lizzie McGuire's brother for like 19 episodes. So that's where people would recognize her from, but that's way, way deep in the IMDb profile there. And the other thing that's notable about Carly Schroeder is that in the only IMDb trivia for this movie, it says, this is Carly Schroeder's last movie before she joined the army.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so she's like, you know what? I'm done with this acting thing. I've worked with Fred Olen Ray. Now I've got to join the army. Maybe Fred Olen Ray convinced her. It's like they're a big military family, the Rays.
That's a huge thing for any career, is being able to speak to somebody who really understands it and knows it. And bonus, if they really understand and know you, and if they spot, if you would be a good fit. Yeah. So maybe there was something there. Maybe he was just like, you would really love it in the army. And well, whatever. Good for her.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, we meet the husband, right?
Yes. So she's been waiting because her husband's supposed to pick her up. She doesn't have a car. And he does. He shows up behind her, almost gives a jump scare. Then immediately is like, who were you talking to? Who was that guy? And he's giving dagger eyes at the ferry captain. And she's just like, he's the ferry he's a nice guy. What my note was, it's a small island town. How does Richard not know the ferry captain? What?
And we've established that he takes the ferry.
Yes.
He's got to.
Everybody takes the ferry. There's the one ferry.
Yeah, and it's also notable that this is the man who pushed his wife off the lighthouse in the first scene, so we know he's a bad guy. He's acting like a bad guy.
Yep.
And is there going to be a twist where he's really not? No. He's just a bad guy.
Don't worry about it. He's evil.
And the other notable thing is this man looks like... did you ever see Escape from L.A.?
Yes.
He looks like Bruce Campbell's character in Escape from L.A. He looks like a plastic surgery nightmare with lip fillers and a frozen face and almost a half Joker smile all the time.
Do you think he's getting Botox?
He's getting everything. He is getting everything. This is an actor named Philip Keane, who was a regular on The Closer, the Kira Sedgwick TNT show. and Major Crimes, which I think was the spin-off show to The Closer. I didn't watch any of those. I was a Burn Notice USA sort of guy, but but that's why the 60-year-old ladies who watch Lifetime movies would know him.
Got it. You can definitely tell when somebody has Botox to ease their wrinkles in their face because you'll be having a conversation with them and they will be expressing some sort of excitement or sadness or other emotion, and it just doesn't show on their face, and they seem like a total psychopath.
Yeah, they've got a face full of poison.
Yeah, totally. So him potentially having Botox really fits this role. Good for him. Great. Commitment to the bit.
He's also, 25 years older than Banana?
It's suspicious, yeah. And we later established that she's something like 21 or 22, and I think the actress was a little bit older than the actress must have been in her late 20s, maybe like...
Yeah, she's like 27, I think, when they filmed, 27 or 28.
And that's not a whole lot of years, but, I mean, you can tell, because 21-year-olds still look like children.
Yeah.
And she looked like a woman. Anyhow, they go to the lighthouse house, which has a name, and that name is Shorecliff. It's really imaginative.
Fred Olen Ray, he doesn't just name fictional countries where Christmas princes come from, okay? He can name lighthouses, too.
I know. I mean, I would love to invite him over and see what name he would come up for my house.
You know, for all I know, though, that could be a perfectly cromulent name for something in that region because, I mean, my mom lives across from a Frank Lloyd Wright house in Buffalo, and it's called Graycliff.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Okay. I guess that's marginally better than the Roby house. You're like, oh, okay. That's a lot of effort put in that. Anyway, okay. So we get a tour of the house. It's very nice, lovely decor. I guess they just got permission to film in there and didn't have to do a whole bunch of set decoration. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the yellow walls or anything like that, but maybe it is actually historically accurate because, I mean, it is like a 150-year-old lighthouse. And, it's a real lighthouse, and it's really old, and it's really there on Lake Ontario. You can visit.
It's a nice house. It's good times. Yeah. We established that Anna is claustrophobic and has no intention of ever ascending the stairs to the lighthouse.
Do they know what claustrophobic means? Because it's not particularly cramped in the stairs. And then she acts like she's afraid of heights. Is he just confusing acrophobic with claustrophobic for this movie?
I think he needed her to be scared of a lot of things and didn't care too much to think too hard about it.
Okay, that checks out.
Yeah. So she has a variety of fears. I think that's the setup. She's got a variety of fears that will come out later in the movie. One of the weirdest things about the house is this enormous portrait of Richard's dead wife, Grace.
That's a classic film noir thing. Like, you get a big portrait of Rebecca and Rebecca. You get a big portrait of Laura and Laura. Fred Olen Ray is desperately trying to make a 1940s kind of gothic horror / noir film. But unfortunately, he films it like a toothpaste commercial. Flat, even lighting, like regular angles. Like, when she is ascending the stairs, you have a sense that no one has any idea how to film that. It's just like, where can we fit the camera? Okay, good enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ugh.
That's what I would do. You've got a giant camera. Unless you're going to go and trying to film that bit on your iPhone, which might not fit with the rest of the... What do I know? Nothing. One thing that's in the house, and I thought it might be for the movie, but it turns out it's probably just part of the house. There's a Catholic church confessional booth behind the piano.
Oh, really?
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, I think it did look... Oh, gosh. Yeah, I didn't look into that at all.
Well, don't worry about it because it doesn't have any bearing on the plot. So I just noted it because it was interesting. And then the jealous maid.
The jealous maid shows up. Speaking of face full of poison, we have our maid here. Her name is Mrs. Argyle.
Yes.
She should get royalty money every year and shouldn't have to do stuff like this. She plays Heather, the oldest cousin in Home Alone. She doesn't show up in Home Alone 2, but she's got a decent-sized family part in Home Alone. And then she has ER money because she was a regular, semi-regular on ER. She played Randy. If you ever watched ER, there's your Franks and your Jerrys and all those people that are not doctors but stand by the desk.
Yeah.
So she was one of those. She even had her own line of like Randy wear, where she was trying to have a side hustle business where she was selling lingerie. Yeah, that's
so funny.
an actor named Kristen Minter. That is where she's from.
Well, she's dressed like Magenta from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, it is Halloween costume made outfit and not anything realistic.
Her whole deal is she's very particular about the house. She describes what the former Mrs. Palmer's routine was, and she like is very much like wanting to stick to the routine. So she and Anna kind of have like a bristling at each other, and Anna's trying to assert her authority as the current Mrs. Richard Palmer. I always want to say Arnold Palmer, but anyway. From their first encounter, we realize that Anna doesn't know how Grace died, which, you know, fine, sure, just marry somebody who's a widower without understanding what happened. Cool.
Okay, so I don't know when they actually explain how Grace died, but I believe the story goes, she went up to the lighthouse. She never went up there. I don't know why she went up there. And then she fell off. But they never found the body, and no one knows how she fell. And I'm like, wait, what? How did you know she fell? Did you find, like, a gray-shaped hole in the ground next to it? Why do you even know she's dead at that point? No one took a second to make a second draft of this and say, hey, that doesn't make a damn bit of sense. Were they improvising the dialogue?
Maybe.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, just saying like, we'll cut it. We just need like to talk right now. Well, so that's how Grace died, mysteriously. Where's her body? Nobody knows.
Well, we'll find out where the body is later, though, right?
No. No. Why would we find that out?
No, of course not.
You're silly. All right, so we're getting some scenes of like Richard's not being a good husband. He's neglecting Anna. Anna wants to like start their new life together, and he's like, "I'm gonna work on my butt, man. Stop bothering me." And we're like, "Okay, all right, dick." So for the rest of the movie, anytime that Anna is woken up in the middle of the night, or she's like woken up from a nap or anything, Richard's never there. So I think they just really never establish a marital relationship whatsoever.
They don't seem to like each other. They don't have any fun together. There's no chemistry there. Do they even, like, kiss? Like, they barely touch in the movie.
I don't think they do kiss. And so a little bit of, this is revealed later in the movie, is that it was a whirlwind 3-month courtship, and that Anna had been vigorously pursued by Richard. And so when she shows up on the island, she's very much in love and optimistic. And his cold behavior is a surprise, and she is just completely off balance because of that. And we see that. And I guess as the audience, we know he's evil, so we don't really care to solve the mystery. Like, it's not a mystery. He's a killer.
Yeah, but that's the fun of these things. Is like, is she going crazy, or is he really a bad dude? But there's no tension there. There's no nothing there. It's
like watching your best friend date like a really bad dude that you know is really bad, and you told her, and you're like, hey, that's a really bad dude. And she's just like, nah. All right. So now the spooky stuff starts to happen. Anna is alone in the bedroom, and she hears a faint knocking or a faint tapping. So she goes to explore. Richard's up. He's working late. He's dismissing her, trying to gaslight her. He's like, this is a 200-year-old house. There's going to be weird sounds. Also, you missed your dinner, but luckily for you, I am a thoughtful man, and I put your dinner plate in the oven, and I opened a bottle of wine for you, which, okay, pause. Frank was watching this with me, and he was having like similar reactions of like, what is wrong with this dude? But here's where our reactions completely diverged. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, sure. I'll like open up a bottle and I was like, okay, I would love it if you opened up a bottle for me. I don't even care if I was like, just had coffee. Did you open up a bottle? Please. Yes.
We let it breathe. Corkscrews are so hard to work.
Yes.
Well, I love that they have a housekeeper for some reason, even though she doesn't seem to do anything. Mm-hmm. And she gives them lunch when they arrive at the house. And the lunch is like an untoasted BLT and some chips on a plate. You have a housekeeper to make you a sandwich and chips on a plate? Like,
it's all the dusting. They've got like a grand piano. They've got figurines. They've got that enormous portrait of Grace to keep dust free.
But they live in like a 1-bedroom house that is not very big. And as we find out, her husband doesn't have any money. So, like, well, why does he have a housekeeper?
Yeah. Like, he must be living on credit. Let's finish the wine, and then we can get into the rest of it.
Yeah, let's finish that wine, because she drinks the wine.
Going in order doesn't really make sense. They're just trying to build up, like, stretch out the tension, but there's no tension.
There's no tension, because we know he's a bad guy.
Yeah, exactly. And, okay, nothing matters. Anyway, so she pours wine from that bottle. It's a green bottle, so there should be red wine in that bottle. But what comes out is, like, pink Mountain Dew.
It's cherry 7-Up, isn't it cool and pink?
Yeah. So she drinks it.
And immediately drops to the ground. There is nothing you can put in there that will not kill a person, that will cause them to immediately drop to the ground. Like, Jen was watching this movie a little bit with me before she fell asleep, and she's like, that's not what wine looks like.
Exactly. You wouldn't drink it. Something's wrong.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So she passes out and then wakes up in bed. So immediately you're thinking, like, what happened to her overnight? You know, like, she's in a nightgown, so maybe he had his way with her. Maybe something else happened. No, nothing.
Yeah, we don't know.
She's fine.
And that seems to be her private bedroom. He's never, like, in bed with her or anything.
Correct. So she's overslept, and Mrs. Argyle is kind of pissy about it. And like, you missed breakfast, and like, whatever.
Eggs don't reheat well.
Yeah, just like, dude. Ugh. Anyhow, Mrs. Argyle has like a big parcel wrapped in brown paper and twine. It's conspicuous, so we're like, oh, what's in there? You know, nothing.
No, that's stuff for the rummage sale. Come on now.
Well, we don't know it at the time. It's mysterious. But yeah, you're right. It's the rummage sale donations. Yeah.
And it has to be wrapped up because that'll come in later because there's another stupid thing that happens.
Stupid thing. So the only thing we're establishing here is that Anna sees the package and doesn't know what's in it or what it's for. So now we go over to a church where a woman and a priest are setting up for the rummage sales, like a fundraiser, blah, blah, blah. They're gossiping because the priest was talking to the bartender, Carrie, and they're like, hey, there's a new Mrs. Richard Palmer. He's nosy. Well, they're both nosy. So he's nosy. He's like, I'm going to go over there because, they got some stuff for the rummage sale and I'll see what I can meet. And then they kiss. And I was like, excuse me.
Well, because he is dressed like a Catholic priest because he's got the dog collar on.
Yes.
But he does have a wife and is called Reverend. So, I think...
It's an imposter.
I think Lutherans can wear the dog collar and be married. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about non-Catholic Christians, so I'm bad at this.
Exactly. Like, the Protestants were like, okay, we don't want Catholicism, but we're just gonna, like, not completely go, like... reject all of the trappings and we're just going to pick and choose and just confuse the hell out of everybody?
Okay, there are two things of note here. Mm-hmm. One is that the priest, his delivery is like he's trying to cover up an accent or something like that, but it fits in with the rest of the movie because everybody takes these weird, awkward pauses, like they're just kind of reading the script off of cue cards in the back or something.
That's probably what they were doing, yeah.
The dialogue and the acting in this movie is pretty much atrocious on both parts. Like, literally, I think Katie Schneider is head and shoulders above everybody else in this movie. Like, she does a good job, and everybody else is just... Again, we have Siri-style performances. Like, they sound like Siri. But the most upsetting thing about this scene is that the priest, Reverend, is touching every cookie on the plate of cookies.
Oh, is he?
He keeps on grabbing a cookie... And then, who we find out is his wife, slaps his hand and takes the cookie out of his hand, and he does this like 5 times. He is touching every cookie with his dirty priest hands. And you don't know where those hands have been. I mean, I know he's not a Catholic priest, but, you know.
Well, we didn't see him wash his hands, and we know that there's a huge problem in general with people just thinking that they don't need to wash their hands frequently, and that is why everybody's sick all the time. We're in the middle of a surge of like 3 different viruses because people don't wash their hands.
And he was just riding his bicycle and he was touching those dirty handlebars. Yeah, no,
right?
That whole town is going to die.
Oh, well, we'll see how they fared in COVID because this was pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah, this was 2018, so yeah, pre-COVID. It came out on Lifetime in 2018, I think in October or something like that. So I believe that means it was probably filmed in late September of 2018.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Okay, so he's on his way. Anna, for reasons, is like, I'm gonna investigate the spiral staircase. That really goes nowhere. The priest arrives right away, knocks on the door, so she's like, let me get the door. And he's being nosy, but not in a weird way. He's just like, hey, what's your deal? And she's like, I'm married. And he mentions the package, and she's like, oh, yeah, I know where that is. Delivers it to him. There we go. So she never sees what's inside. Turns out that this reverend who's dressed like a priest has known Richard for years and years and years, which establishes that everybody knows each other, except Richard doesn't know the ferry captain for some reason.
That's a weird sticking point for you, but like, yeah.
It drives me insane. We're introduced to Richard's writing style. So he's a novelist and he writes murder mysteries.
And near as we can tell, he writes them in longhand.
Yeah, because there's another character later who shows up who's like, her whole job is a transcriptionist.
Like, he doesn't have a typewriter or a computer or anything. We don't actually see him write. We see, like, his typed pages, like, from her later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. The movie wants us to think at this point that he's probably killing a successive series of wives as fodder for his books, but that's not really... That doesn't pan out. Anna invites the reverend priest and the reverend priest's wife to dinner. For reasons. She's just being friendly, but...
Yeah, well, and she also doesn't know anybody, have any friends. Doesn't seem to have a cell phone to talk to anybody or, like, get texts or anything. And
exactly.
Fred Olen doesn't like phones in movies. He said that in his Christmas book. I've learned that much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not interesting to, like, look at somebody stare at their phone. So, yeah.
The movie doesn't really have a timeless quality because of that, but it kind of could. Like, I could see kind of what he's going for.
Yeah,
but
it could. Yeah. It could. The fashions are solidly 2018, though. She's got, like, a knitted ear warmer.
The fashions are solidly 2007, even though this movie came out in 2018.
Oh, yeah?
She is wearing one of the... Okay, so, yeah, in her opening scene, she's wearing one of those, like, head wraps that everyone wore in, like, 2007. I picture Alex Kirkovich.
That's why I misidentified it.
Yeah. She looks like Alex Kirkovich from Happy Endings. Yeah, no, she is constantly dressed, like, 10 years before the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so she gets dressed up for the big wedding. Jesus Christ. She gets dressed up for the big dinner with the priest and the lady priest, or the priest's wife. And she's wearing, like, a super boobsy outfit. And then the housekeeper goes up to her and says, you know what? You should wear this necklace. Yeah. Puts on some costume jewelry around her neck because, of course, she's rich and she has her own jewelry, but it's not going to be delivered until a couple days from now, so...
It's on the mainland, is what she says.
It's on the mainland, yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, this jewelry looks okay-ish, but, like...
It's cool. You could get it from Hot Topic. It's a nice big statement necklace.
Yeah. And, like, her wedding ring is, like, super costume jewelry, like, nonsense. And basically, I don't think she wears any jewelry that... I believe my wife said it all looks like it came from Charming Charlie's.
Sure. I mean, this woman has no taste. But she's got a lot of money.
Yeah, you can have money without taste.
It's allowed. So Mrs. Argyle presents this as a family heirloom, and she presents it as something that Richard would really like. So when he flips out, like, has a fucking aneurysm, is like, take it off, get out, blah, blah, in front of the priest and his wife, she is just taken aback. She is, like, crying, right? That's, because it's out of nowhere.
This guy completely goes off the handle, like... 0 to 100 in front of company, like, screaming at her. She has no idea.
Exactly.
How could she possibly know? And also, why are you that upset? Does he feel guilty that he killed her? I don't know.
It's not explained.
Because he flies off the handle multiple times. We never really see him be nice. We see him be dismissive, patronizing, and we see him just screaming.
Well, I mean, he's a psychopath, right? There's no rationale other than that, which...
There's no redeeming qualities to this guy, and there's like, why? I mean, maybe because he's, one of the more famous actors in the movie? Maybe that's the appeal? I don't know.
No, I have no idea. So the Reverend Priest and his wife leave, which, to the movie's credit, that's a normal thing to do, and it happens.
Yeah, they're like, yeah. Now, it is noted that the priest, when he first came to the house, he took his bike and he's like, oh, I went all the way out here on my bike. And then when he and his wife show up, they just walked over. They don't have a car or anything like that, I guess. So again, how far is this lighthouse from everybody else? Do they have neighbors? I don't know.
It's unknowable. That's what it is.
So the priest is an actor named Henry LeBlanc.
Any relation to Matt?
I don't believe so.
Oh.
Not that I know of. I mean, it could be. It could be like an uncle or something. It could be a Frank Stallone situation. But I do have to mention that he was in the movie Beyond the Gates because... So we do our 80s Scream Queens all the time on this. Mm-hmm. And the one biggest 80s Scream Queen, not Jamie Lee Curtis edition, that has not worked with Fred Olen Ray is Barbara Crampton. And this guy has a small part in Beyond the Gates, which is a Barbara Crampton movie from 2016 about these brothers who basically get like one of those VHS board games from the 80s that's haunted. And it's a pretty cool movie. And it's like, it costs $5 to make and stuff like that. And I would totally recommend watching that movie. But Barbara Crampton plays not quite an Elvira, but like a VHS host inside the video game who is like tormenting these brothers who were estranged and like reconnecting after a death. And It's a fun watch. But anyway, yeah, so anytime I can tie Barbara Crampton into this show, I need to do that. So,
okay. 6 degrees of Barbara Crampton.
6 degrees of Barbara Crampton, because, we're going to get these two crazy kids together someday. Barbara Crampton's probably too good for Fred Olen Ray, but what can you do?
Hey, movies are movies. There's money to be made. So meanwhile, Anna cries in front of the mirror. So she flees to her bedroom and she's crying and brushing her hair and did not take off the necklace. And she's just kind of talking to herself. So this is the very first indication that Anna might be breaking under the stress. She's been there for 2 days.
Yeah.
Something else that happens around this time is Richard is stressing about money and is like, well, I'm rich. How much do you need? We're married. It's our money. And he's like, $5,000, please. And so she writes him a check and he's like, blank check, please. I don't know which bank account it needs to go into. And she's like, okay. And she does it.
What, does he have different names for the different accounts?
It's super sus.
You don't even need to do that. Just put it in your name and then go cash it.
It's a very easy thing of signing it over to, endorsing it over to somebody else, which he would know. Talia wouldn't know, your daughter, but Richard would.
I mean, she might. I think Tal might.
Well, she would never have had to do it, right? Anyway, Talia, if you're listening to this podcast, tell us, do you know how to sign over a check to somebody else?
Yeah, but okay, so he gets the check, not quite immediately, but 2 minutes later, I think Katie Schneider spies him handing the check to some guy who we don't see before or after, who's like, yeah, you got my money. Mm-hmm. Why is he in debt?
Because he's an author?
I mean, granted.
No, it's not explained.
As a writer, I can tell you that I'll be, somebody read 15 pages in Japan for my book today. That's a halfpenny for me.
Wow, you get that granular with the ebooks?
Yeah, no, it's not actually probably even a half a penny, but I think if somebody reads 100 pages of one of my books on Kindle, KDP or whatever, I think I get maybe it's $1 for 100 pages.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, every once in a while, it looks like I get $50 coming from Japan, and I check and I'm like, oh no, that's 50 yen.
Oh yeah.
And it turns out to be 45 cents or something like that. I'm like, oh god damn it.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, writer talk right there. All right, a $20 check is pretty fancy,
So he delivers $5,000 to some guy, and that is never revisited. But It happens.
It does. It's a thing that happens in the movie.
It's a thing that happens. But back to Anna has just been ripped a new one for wearing a necklace. She's upstairs in the bedroom. The priest and wife have left, and Richard, alone on the main level of the house, is approached by another woman. Who is this woman? She has red hair.
Yeah, she's real temptress right there. This is Beth, right?
Yeah, it's Beth. And they kiss passionately in the living room. And I was like, dude, Anna can come down at any moment and you've got this other, but I was thinking she might be a ghost at this point.
Turns out Beth is the transcriptionist that we were talking about. And Beth's character is that she is just evil?
Well, she's the transcriptionist, so evidently, if we're gonna do some deduction, she and Richard have fallen in love or in lust and got Grace out of the way, maybe so they could be together, maybe at Beth's pushing, but we don't know.
They seem like a couple, but she's also blackmailing him.
Yeah. Okay, well, we should just get this out of the way. Like, through Beth's conversation with Richard over the next several scenes, we put it all together. Richard needs money, so he went and found a wealthy heiress, pursued her, married her, and his whole deal, along with Beth, is to drive Anna crazy so they can get her institutionalized, and lo and behold, then he will have control over all of her money, and then he and Beth will be free to do whatever they want, essentially. That's the plan.
Not a great plan.
Yeah, for no reason. How much money does a person need?
Like, first off, just let your housekeeper go. Or rent out an extra room in your 200-year-old building as an Airbnb and finish your book.
That's all you need to do. Keep costs down. You live on a tiny little island where everybody knows everybody except for the ferry captain for some fucking reason. It's not that expensive to live there. It's fine. Anyhow, that's their plan.
Yep. Beth is an actor that I don't know from anything. She's got, like, this movie is one of her known fors.
Oh, okay. Right.
So, yeah, I think she's got like 7 credits altogether. She was on an episode of one of the Walking Dead spin-off shows, so you won't know her from anything, I don't think.
So you saw her here first. She's an up-and-comer. All right. So, meanwhile, Anna is still being tormented by random sounds at night. This time, doors are opening and closing by themselves. This isn't really explained. They do that sometimes.
It's not since Spookies have we had such a tight atmospheric horror like this.
All right, so she investigates. The door to the spiral staircase is open, so she heads in. The door slams shut behind her, and she flips out. Now her fear has been activated. She's freaking out. Richard runs over, pulls open the door. He's like, yo, are you okay? Like, what's up? What's up? She's adamant that somebody's in the tower. So he investigates by standing at the base of the stairs and looking up, and he's like, there's nobody in the tower.
She's like, do you go to the top? No. Like, pretend to try to help her. Okay, also, we don't know, is the door just sticky?
Maybe.
Because, like, that's the sort of thing you do at the beginning of the movie before we know he's bad. And so you're like, well, maybe he's like, maybe the door is rigged. Maybe the door just is sticky and it's just a coincidence. But like, no, This is just like,
yep.
And also this happened. Like, this isn't, and also this happened.
Yeah. So he wants to calm Anna down. He pours them both a drink from the same decanter. So we know it's not poisoned this time. He takes a sip first. So everything's fine. So they set that up for no reason. He demonstrates that one of Grace's canes, which was hanging in a closet, must have been being moved by a draft and causing the sounds that are bothering Anna. And he's just like, you're going nuts. Stop it. Like, chill the fuck out.
Because it's tap, tap, tapping on the wall, waving in a closet. Because you know how drafty closets are.
Yeah.
So drafty.
Yeah. So Anna, the next morning, she's like, Mrs. Argyle must be at fault. She like confronts her. It's like, you set me up. You gave me this. You knew the necklace would upset Richard. You put that cane in the drafty closet to bother me. And Mrs. Argyle's like, not me, bitch. So
yeah, that Anna calls her a cunt, I think, right?
Sure. No.
Lifetime movies gotten weird. She's like, you're an upfront cunt.
Right after this, Dr. Shaw calls Anna's cell phone. So Anna does have a phone. She's just not using it.
Oh, right.
She's like, hello. Dr. Shaw's like, hey, just want to check up on you. And she like immediately hangs up, like, does not want to talk to that guy.
I do not remember that happening at all. I must have been looking at my phone at that point. This is our saggy middle.
There's like nothing happening. And then Richard's like, hey, Anna, let's go to the rummage sale. Let's get out of the house. This house is noisy and drafty.
The rummage sale.
Yes.
Which, okay, accurate to small town life. There's nothing happening. A rummage sale seems exciting.
Yeah, totally. So guess what? Everybody's there, including Carrie, the bartender, and Anna's BFF.
Yeah, they met once.
Yeah. Carrie has an item from the rummage sale in her hands. She's considering purchasing, and she's like, no, Anna, you should have this. You seem to really like it. It is
I've got no place to display this.
It's a small ceramic horse.
Then Katie Schneider is acting just like the housemaid was, like, oh yeah, no, you should take this. This would look great with your place. Like, why? Neither one of them, as it turns out, is trying to set Anna up for anything. They're just being fucking weirdos for no reason. There's no intrigue at this point because we know who the bad guys are. They are currently doing bad things.
Yep. So Richard comes over. Anna's like, I want this horse. He flips out. He's like, how fucking dare you?
This was one of the things we donated to the rummage sale, you stupid woman. Like, what?
So now we know why they spent so much fucking time establishing that Anna doesn't know what's being donated to the rummage sale. And so she rightfully is like, what's wrong with this asshole?
You know, I make fun of everything in this movie, like the small stakes, people flying off the handle for no reason, and like them making intrigue out of nothing, absolutely nothing. But if the people of the Gilded Age had this much happen in an entire season, it would be amazing. This just needs more fancy hats, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, the hat game was kind of lacking. Everybody's got knit caps. It's cold. I think it's supposed to be spring.
Yeah. She was wearing her knit cap inside at one point, too. I don't think that lighthouse is probably heated.
Yeah, well, it's drafty. We know that.
It is drafty, yeah.
All right, back at home, Beth arrives. Anna answers the door. So they meet for the first time. Beth says some weird shit, like, I answered to the call of my master's voice. And you're like, way to be, like, normal, Beth.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
That's what she's doing. Yes. All right. So we learn at this point, like, she's a transcriber, blah, blah, blah. And then when Anna goes away and lets Richard and Beth get to work, they fill us in on everything. Beth's like, push her along faster. Richard's like, no, this has to be like airtight. Or maybe Beth says that. It doesn't matter. Beth's like, you have to get rid of her. We realize he wants her $2 million. Anna's got $2 million.
Oh, they actually say the amount? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not that much.
Right? Anyhow. And then Beth, like, where the blackmail thing kind of comes in, the flavor of blackmail is, I know where the bodies are buried. And we're like, oh, are we going to see Grace? Like, are we going to... No, just Beth knows.
And I was like, is there more than one body?
Right? So that's why I was thinking, like, hey, this is a series of murders for his books, but no. And I guess this is really just establishing is that Beth doesn't really care if Anna lives or dies. Richard cares. He would rather not kill her, but he's 100% on board with getting her committed to an institution.
Yeah.
That's what we learn. Meanwhile...
Yeah, what is Anna doing now? Because I know she walks into the room later and discovers one of the pages and has her own, like, screaming flip out.
We do some random shit. So Anna's walking along the lakeshore. Okay? She's got Grace's cane, or one of them, because they did establish there were multiple. So she throws the cane that she has into the lake. And then, because she's away from the house, she heads back to the house. She looks up. There's somebody on the lookout. And so she runs in. She's like calling for Richard. And this is what actually causes her to get up the spiral staircase finally, because Richard's nowhere to be found. She's like desperate to figure out who the fuck is up there. It's Beth. Beth is up there. And then Beth is like, you looked like you were about ready to jump. Are you okay? Did you want to jump?
Okay. Oh, so yeah, I do remember this scene. So first off, it doesn't look like it's Beth from a distance because,
right.
You know, movie magic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if this is an intentional, like, gaslighting situation or if this is just she's already a little cray, so she sees this person up there. But then she says, like, we get the jump scare, and she says, oh my God, Beth. And then Beth says, oh my God, Beth is right. Or something along those lines. And I had to rewind because I was like, wait, is she calling her Beth? Because she's Anna and you're Beth. But then I was like, okay, no, she's just repeating what she's saying. And I really had a moment where I thought, like, are they confusing their own character names now? But no, it's...
Beth just likes being scary.
Yeah. I think the problem with this movie is that it really feels the pressure of having something happen before each commercial break on Lifetime.
Oh.
And that is why things are just like, oh, here's something that happens. It's spooky. And then it's nothing. It's almost like a soap opera setup. So it doesn't feel as much like a movie as it does like a TV movie, which it is.
Well, and then the commercial breaks on Tubi are just completely random and not the Lifetime commercial breaks.
Oh my God. I love the commercial break on Tubi because it'll be something mid-sentence sometime.
Yes. Okay, sidebar. This is a problem with preserving digital media without preserving the original delivery mechanism of the digital media, because things like this, where you and I can identify, well, you did, that the commercial breaks are a key part of the original experience of watching this movie on broadcast or cable. Those are gone and divorced from the current experience, which we're 6 or 7 years in the future from like when this movie was released, and it's already so different and makes the experience completely different.
The ideal way to watch this would be on a Lifetime movie marathon on the Lifetime movie network then.
Or in the far future, you would want some VHS recording of the original experience.
Yeah, VHS rips on YouTube, man. That's the way to go about watching some of the, like an 80s TV movie. You want the original, like 1-800-COLLECT commercials or
Victory Auto Parts.
Well, that is Chicago specific, but yes.
It was one of the best commercials.
My regional specific thing would be Tales from the Crypt would be replayed on Fox 29 Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Saturday night, like 1 a.m. And I would always get Candice Bergen advertising, get the most for the least with Sprint Canada.
No, that is really cool. So anyway, just keep that in mind next time you're trying to play like a video game on an emulator on your computer when you really should be using like a busted ass controller that's sticky.
And you should be watching it on a cathode ray tube.
Yes. All right. So now we're into full snoop mode. Anna wants to find out what's going on. Well, sort of, as much as the script allows her. Yep. She goes snooping and reads a snippet of Richard's new novel, which is on the printer, which appears to narrate Grace's death. She's disgusted. This is a normal reaction.
Is it a normal reaction?
Well, to be disgusted at discovering that your husband...
She reads one paragraph on the top, which just happens to describe a blind woman, and immediately goes into blind rage herself.
You're right. Like, that was maybe a tad exaggerated.
It was
I was on gin and tonic too by this point in the movie.
You were like, yeah, you go, Anna. You're right.
Yes. Okay. All right. So it turns out Beth planted that, and she gives like a smirk to Richard, and Richard's like, you're incorrigible back, but like in his expression, not in words.
In his frozen face expression.
Yeah, exactly. Next on the plan to gaslight Anna, Richard prints out a whole like complete manuscript, and he's like, here, Anna, like this is the full manuscript. You can see I didn't write that scene that you are talking about. You are probably crazy, right?
Yeah. And read this whole 200-page book in front of me and see if you can find it.
Exactly. So now Richard has some plausible excuse to call in Dr. Shaw. He's like, Dr. Shaw, come visit us. I'm worried about Anna. Dr. Shaw, who has been worried about Anna, arrives immediately because... Sure. And they have a conversation. Dr. Shaw reveals more about Anna's past. So this is like the first time we're really learning what is Anna's deal.
Yeah, because none of these characters have existed before the movie started. We don't get a sense of like they had a wedding. We don't get a sense of like any of that stuff, any bit of their relationship, like anything before this movie. And Dr. Shaw shows up and like, oh yeah, Anna's parents died in a fire. She probably set the fire, but they couldn't prove anything. We just put her in the booby hatch until she turned 21 years old and inherited all their money. It was just exposition dump in the third act right there.
Yep. So we're like, oh, okay, so great. Good to know. Anna comes into the room. She's not pleased to see Dr. Shaw. She's like, what are you doing here?
Now, I know you thought that they were enemies at the beginning. I thought they seemed a little bit more amiable than that. But, like, she is immediately pissed off just seeing this doctor. Like, this is a family friend you've known for 20 years, and you're just like, she just is stuck in blind rage mode already.
But she does confide in him a little bit. She says, somebody's trying to drive me out of this house. So he writes a prescription and delivers it to her husband.
Yeah, and then the husband says, "Oh, well, I'll get these," and he says, "No, the pharmacy will only fill it if Anna picks it up herself." That's not how prescriptions work.
But it was also like, how far, like, where in the patriarchy are we? Are we in a town where it's totally normal for a man to manage his wife like that and like get the drugs for her and blah, blah, blah? Or are we in a more woman empowered town where a pharmacist will look at this with suspicion and be like, well, let me see the patient. Do we respect women or not?
I mean, Anna does have her own checking account, so we're pretty feminist here, right?
It's so weird. That was, aside from, that's not how pharmacies work. It was weird.
Aliens wrote this movie. I am 100% convinced.
That's what, yeah.
And they also were the acting coaches in this movie because no one has any sort of natural delivery in this movie.
No, I've seen Saturday Night Live sketches. A lot of Saturday Night Live sketches are more natural delivery, and they are reading off of cue cards. Okay, well, it's the next day, and Richard, after promising Dr. Shaw not to leave Anna alone for too long, is packing for an extended trip on the mainland. He's got to do stuff. He's got work stuff to do.
And she's like, "Oh, is this about that delayed money? Why you needed the $5,000? And he's like, sure, why not?"
Yep.
He did not have a cover story at all. He's just like, no, I need to go to the mainland. Writer business. and this entire time, too, he's just like, "Oh, well, I need to write right now." No, you're a writer. You set your own hours. Like,
so Anna drives Richard to town so he can take the ferry. So he like collects his things, goes away.
He sees Ed and is like, "Who are you, ferryman?"
He's like, "Oh, you're headed into the mainland." And the captain's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to be gone for a couple days." And then the captain hands him, he's like, "I'm sure you will be." Like okay. So the ferry captain knows Richard.
Maybe they have the Homer Simpson, Mr. Burns relationship. Smithers,
Maybe.
Who is that man?
Yes. All right. The car is not working. Anna can't start the car. She's like, shit. Carrie happens to be
she is at the pharmacy, and she can't get it started from the pharmacy.
Yeah, exactly. So Carrie's like, "Hey, I can just give you a ride. No big deal, blah, 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 blah." And
one of the three
Anna's
people in town is there to help her.
It must be really small, so she doesn't really need a ride. She could walk it. But it also doesn't matter. We have to get inside Carrie's car for other things to happen. Okay. Carrie drives her home. They have a cup of tea, and Carrie is kind of in the know about Grace's death. She's like, "Yeah, when Grace died, Richard was also away on the mainland. Huh. That's weird, huh?"
Weird he would have an alibi like that.
So, okay, Carrie heads out. She's got a date. Who are you dating in a small town?
There's people.
But she's a grown woman. Would she not already be married or be dating somebody on the mainland? And then it would have caught that ferry early. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Okay. Carrie's got a date. We never hear about anything coming up that date. Now, it is later that night. Mrs. Argyle is leaving early. Anna's like, "Oh, you're leaving?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm out of here. And maybe you should stay at a hotel tonight. I don't know. Like reasons. Maybe you don't want to stay here tonight." And Anna's like, "I think I can stay in my own home."
Okay, why is Mrs. Argyle leaving early if she's worried about Anna?
No explanation.
It's like brought upon many times in the movie, like, "Oh, Mrs. Argyle leaves by 7:30.
She's committed to her timeline, except tonight.
She's got no other place to go. We don't know where she is. Does she have family she's taking care of?
It would be so easy for her to say that, like, she's got a sick kid and she's got to head out to, like, take care of the kid. But that is not what happens. Yeah. She just leaves early.
It's that's like a Hill House thing, is the housekeeper and the groundskeeper have to leave by a certain time every day. But, like, we know where they go and why, and we know stuff that happens in Hill House. And Hill House is good.
Mrs. Argyle is gone. And Anna pulls out the ceramic horse from her purse because she got the ceramic horse from the rummage sale. And then she, like, puts it on a spot and then leans forward and smiles at it. She's just admiring that. She loves this ceramic horse.
Do you think that's a commercial break? Is that like...
Yes.
Is she suspicious?
It has to be. This is the second point in the movie where we're like, maybe something's not super right with Anna. And we have just found out that she spent several years locked away. So like, okay, all right, maybe she's crazy. We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and by like might and maybe, I mean glaring red siren, something's up with Anna.
Yeah.
Okay. Later, much later in the night, Anna's in bed. She is woken up by the sound of a cane tapping on the chamber floor downstairs, because we immediately go downstairs in the camera and close up with a Edgar Allan Poe bust. And then we like look at the rest of the scene, and guess what? Richard's there. He's got Grace's cane. He's tapping all over the place, making a racket, trying to wake her up.
And that's when he unleashes his dastardly plan of punching her in the face.
Yeah.
He just punches her in the face.
Okay, all right. I know that like hitting somebody and knocking them unconscious takes a lot of force, and that you know, if you're trying to hit somebody with that much force, you might kill them, because you know you're going for the head
brain
area.
Damage, yeah. But
there's also a specific way that TV shows and movies display the kind of head injury. Like, I'm saying that he like punched her like you might actually punch somebody, not in the way that like is movie language for, oh, I hit them on the back of the head and it knocked them out, but they'll be okay.
No, he just punched her in the eye.
Yeah, like split her skin open on her cheekbone, which, would that knock you out? No, it would break your eye socket bone.
Yeah, the orbital.
And you would still be awake.
To scream.
And yeah, okay, so she's unconscious.
Yeah, so he lifts her up like a baby and just throws her into the spiral staircase room, and then locks it with a board. And then we see him and Beth drinking wine and talking about their evil plans together.
They're having a toast.
Yes, and I've got the perfect alibi. And they're just in the next room in the house.
They've opened up a bottle of wine. So Anna comes to, she starts screaming, flipping out. We are taking advantage of her, you know, fear of being locked in there, because she was locked in there before, and she's also in pain.
Okay, hold on. Not to go back on this, though, but like they kind of like backtrack with dialogue like, oh, well, he took the ferry out, but then rented a boat to get back. Mm-hmm. Did he take that boat to the shore of his lighthouse?
Oh, yeah.
Were they able to dock there? Because like, they would see his car, and he can't take a bicycle because there's two of them, unless they both took bicycle. Like, somebody would see them going back to the house. Okay, so my headcanon is two-person kayak, and they kayak to the shore, and, you know, they were a little sweaty for it, but it's good cardio, and it's good for you, you know.
However he did it, he's there, Beth's there.
Yep.
They have decided that they are going to have some wine in the living room as Anna screams from like 10 feet away. Anna does her heel turn. She switches from screaming and crying to spooky laughing.
She gets shining disease right away. Then, for no reason, Mrs. Argyle comes back. No reason, right?
Well, she explains her reason, but like, we don't know. We're like, what the fuck, Mrs. Argyle?
Yeah,
like,
she just shows up at the house.
Yes.
And she's like, is that Anna? Huh. Oh, look, there's a board in front of the door. She removes the board, opens up the door. Anna jumps out and immediately starts strangling her.
Major regret on Mrs. Argyle's point. So Mrs. Argyle came back to release Anna and is immediately out of the picture. She's unconscious on the floor. Richard, you know, because he was in the next room and didn't hear Mrs. Argyle come in or anything.
No one can hear anybody come into this house. They don't lock the doors or anything.
Well, it's a small town. You don't need to. It's safe.
Try that in a small town.
Yeah, exactly. He comes in, sees that Mrs. Argyle is unconscious. He heads to the kitchen, grabs a big knife, and calls out for Anna. Anna surprises him. She's got like a huge, heavy candlestick-looking thing. It's a blunt force instrument. She goes at him. She kills him.
Is he actually dead?
He doesn't show up again ever, so...
I thought he might be alive. I don't know.
Maybe.
All I know is she does beat the tar out of him with that candlestick. She must hit him, 15 times?
A bunch. Beth, meanwhile, takes another couple sips of her wine, and then she's cautiously exploring. Anna chases her out of the house, catches up with her on, like, the walkway in front, bludgeons her to death. Carrie, who found Anna's prescription in her car. Anna had left her prescription.
Yeah, Carrie has a reason to come back to the house.
So she was like, oh shit, like, these pills might be really important. I better, like, go deliver them right now in case she really, really needs it. So she drives up. She screams out, Anna.
What are you doing?
Anna's like caught red-handed. She has killed. Like, oh my gosh.
She's like, hey, I'm crazy now.
Yes.
But thankfully, her best friend that she's talked to twice was able to calm her down.
Yeah.
And it's like hard cut to the police arriving?
Kind of. So there's like a little extra, kind of crazy bits there. Like Anna runs back to the house. Carrie follows, which Carrie should not do. Anna has now gone, not like totally catatonic, but she's found another of Grace's canes and she's just sitting there tapping the cane. She's like no longer in destructive mode. We do the hard cut. There's police. There's an ambulance. Mrs. Argyle is okay. Mrs. Argyle now explains everything we didn't see. Richard came back in the boat. Mrs. Argyle knew that Richard was the killer, but couldn't prove it. So she suspected that he might try something tonight, which is why she came back. Like, it's all just...
And she just info dumps this all to Katie Schneider, two characters who have never interacted before in this movie. She literally ends her explanation with, I'm going to have a lot of explaining to do. It's like, yep, you sure do. You just did it. Great. Good work.
Yes. So we do see Anna being taken away in an ambulance, but I don't
Yeah, they had ambulance money. Come on now.
They did. So then we cut to later. Just later. We're in a hospital setting. Dr. Shaw is supervising Anna's care. She's in the institution that evidently she had been before the movie started.
Yeah. And we see...
somebody...
Christmas Chef is back! Peter Johnson! As soon as I looked at the cast list and I saw Peter Johnson and Katie Schneider, I'm like, oh, this was filmed in Western New York. And these are the two that show up in every one of these movies. I think he might have done... he does casting. I don't think he did the casting for this movie, too. But, he's got a little part where he's like, Doctor, the only thing that seems to calm her down is this ceramic horse. Can I let her have it? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah, it's ceramic. I mean, is she a risk at self-harm? But Dr. Shaw
harming others. She is a risk at harming others. She could break it. It's it is all sharp edges.
That doesn't matter because Dr. Shaw gives it the go-ahead, orderly delivers the ceramic horse, and she is back to excessively admiring this figurine for no reason.
Yeah, she does the whole Tommy Westfall at the end of St. Elsewhere stare at the horse.
Well, and then you can tell me this. Her last, 2 lines of dialogue or so were like, why are you afraid? I wouldn't hurt a fly. And I thought that was the last thing that the guy from Psycho said.
Yeah, that's a reference to Psycho. I couldn't find much info about it, but there's actually a contest on Lifetime.com to name some of the movies that inspired this movie.
Oh!
It references a lot of movies.
Yes.
But, as we mentioned before, this is the opposite of a Film Bro movie, so IMDb doesn't even have a connections page for this one, which is sad. The most obvious thing is Rebecca that we talked about. Then we have... I think probably Laura is more of the picture there. We have that Psycho ending there. And Fred Olen Ray himself says the movie has... Hold on, I took a screenshot on my phone, as we mentioned.
Ooh.
Some of the things that inspired him for this movie is... He lists 3 movies. Actually, he lists 3 things. The first is Dark Shadows, which is the vampire soap opera.
Yeah.
I don't see any connection of Dark Shadows there. There's no vampires. It's not like Gothic mansions. No one's British. There's not even fog. I don't know. Dark Shadows in that it was written and filmed in the span of 6 hours. Then there's Haunting Fear, which is Fred Olen Ray's own movie starring Brinke Stevens that came out in 1990, 1991. And The Night Walker, which is an interesting one. That is... I feel like it's a Roger Corman production, but William Castle is the director of that one. Did you ever see the movie Matinee with John Goodman?
No, I don't think so.
So William Castle was he's almost like a Hitchcock figure, but also a P.T. Barnum figure. He would have a skeleton fly out over the heads of the theaters. He would put buzzers and seats and things like that to make people...
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And they were all Sense-O-Vision or Insane-O-Vision or something like that. I cannot remember. The Tingler, yes! We have talked about Vincent Price's The Tingler here.
Yeah.
That was one of the first films that had a pretend break in the film and then somebody in a costume would run around the theater. And then Vincent Price would be saying, "Scream for your lives, the Tingler." We now resume the picture. But yeah, so anyway, the Nightwalker is a woman being haunted by recurring nightmares. And that's a whole mystery where she's got a dead husband, but maybe the husband's not really dead, and maybe he's causing her nightmares. So,
oh my god,
yeah,
or maybe it's the carbon monoxide.
Yeah, it's another like gaslight situation sort of thing, you know. But yeah, so that was Deadly Shores.
What would you rate this on sense making?
This is fucking 2.5 here. Like, I don't like, you can't think about anything that's happening in this movie. So, you know what's happening from one scene to the next, kind of. Things don't happen out of nowhere, but it doesn't hold up to any logic whatsoever.
I agree. How about the quality/production value?
This is solid 4. Solid 4 territory. I was not particularly impressed with the house, but it's a real location, and they got the ferry, they got an ambulance. It's the standard Fred Olen Ray. We've got 4 locations. We're going to use them as many times as we want. We never went back to that bar, which was shocking to me. Yeah. That's a real waste of a setup there. How are you going to make your movie in 12 days if you only have one scene in that bar?
I wonder if he was shooting a couple of movies concurrently and the bar was in something else.
Maybe.
I'm just guessing. But yeah, your point stands.
It's Katie Schneider. You're the bartender in this, too.
Yeah, exactly. How about level of effort? Now that you've mentioned Katie Schneider, the standout performance of this movie.
Standout. I love her in this. 5.5. In terms of like writing and direction and acting, I just feel like no one cares. But everyone is professional enough to at least, not like look at the camera and laugh. So I don't know. Yeah. I think I'm gonna be too mean with the sense making and too generous with the effort. But no one is grading me on my grade, so fuck it.
All right, and rounding up our ratings is entertainment. Was this movie entertaining?
Yeah, it's got a saggy middle, but like the entire time I'm like, wait, what? You watch the first 20 minutes of this movie and the acting is so atrocious. Everything is so podunk. And when you get that code red instead of wine, you're like, oh yeah, chef's kiss. Then it kind of like, we're just hanging around for a while and going to rummage sales and not doing shit. But then the last 10 minutes of this movie are just completely bonker. It is completely banana. We're wildin'. So it's got a strong ending and a strong beginning. So that's why it gets a 7, even though the middle is probably like a 4. The middle is like a 3 or a 4. But like, yeah, no. Chef's kiss to Anna's like a rampage for no reason. She's like, I was in a room for 45 minutes. I'm crazy now.
She was not going to put up with that level of disrespect.
How lucky for that writer that the one lady he found also happened to come from a mental institution. How did he know that she had money?
Research?
Did he also know she was already in an institution? Because he didn't seem to when the doctor was talking to her.
Oh, I thought that was part of his plan because she
had was mentally fragile. But they don't seem to talk about that or know that. Like, maybe he knew she was institutionalized, but didn't know that, she had probably murdered her parents. And why did she murder her parents? She just cray?
I guess.
Goodness gracious.
It's a Michael Myers situation. You just can't explain it.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Yeah. Like, did Fred Olen Ray have another movie at this bar at that same time? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He literally had 5 movies in 2018. So chances are, possibly, we've got Witness Unprotected, Fiancé Killer. These are all TV movies. Wedding for Christmas and Christmas in Royal Fashion. Any one of those. Could have been filmed in Buffalo. I'm going to pick one at random and see if Katie Schneider's in it to see if it's from Buffalo.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay, hold on. He's got Michael Paré in this one. Okay, this one does not stand out as particularly Buffalo-ish. Maybe I should go with the Lifetime ones. Yep, Katie Schneider, Fiancé Killer. Here we go. I bet you it was filmed at the same time. But since it's another Lifetime movie, it's not going to have any information about it.
Incredible.
And that's the patriarchy at work right there, because these are women's thrillers. The IMDb crowd doesn't care. I don't know.
Are they women's thrillers? Because there was that line where the priest's wife went to like check in on Anna before the whole like dinner ending outburst happened, and she finagled it. I was like, oh, why don't I just go check on Anna? You know how us women are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, okay. Does Fredo and Ray know that women are just people?
This is the ingrained misogyny of that generation, Meredith. Let me explain women to you.
What are we watching next time?
I don't know. I was thinking maybe this was the season finale, but let's do one more and we'll figure it out. I'm going to be out of town and then I'll send you something and we'll watch it and it'll be our season finale and then we'll be off for like 2 months and we'll start recording episodes again. I think that's a great plan, right?
That's a great plan. Love that plan.
In the meantime, as always, you've been Meredith.
And you've been Kennedy.
And if you picked up one thing from today's episode, it's, why don't you watch Beyond the Gates? It's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good.
Beyond the Gates.
Beyond the Gates. I'm doing it in my alien from Toy Story voice. The claw. I'm hitting stop.
Bye.
Bye. Cause it's tap, tap, tapping on the wall, waving in a closet.
Going Over Our Freds was created and produced by us, Michael Kennedy and Meredith Halsey.
Our theme was composed and performed by Justin Nozick. Find more music for him at Bandcamp. Search for The Plague Physicians.
Artwork by Michael Kennedy. Special thanks to everyone who helped make the season possible, including the friends and family who let us watch these movies instead of this year's Academy Award nominees. And thank you for listening.
If you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to Going Over Our Freds on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter at Goof Podcast, and find us on Instagram at Going Over Our Freds.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. For questions, comments, and complaints, email us at goingoverourfreds@gmail.com.
Thanks.